I still remember the sound of the rain that night. Not the storm itself, just the steady, rhythmic tapping against the living room window. It was past midnight on Christmas Eve, technically Christmas morning, and I'd just gotten home from a 14-hour shift in the ER. We'd had 3 traumas back-to-back, a cardiac arrest, and a little boy who'd swallowed his grandmother's pills. I was still wearing my scrubs under my coat, and my feet ached in that deep, bone-tired way that only comes from standing on hospital floors all day. The house was dark except for the lamp by the couch. I assumed Daniel had left it on for me before going to bed. He knew how I hated coming home to darkness after the kind of shift that leaves you feeling hollowed out. But then I saw her. Emily was curled up on the couch, still wearing her good coat, the navy wool one we'd bought together in October. Her shoes were on. Her purse sat on the floor beside her, and on the coffee table, untouched, was a plate of cookies she'd baked that afternoon and 2 small wrapped packages with handmade tags. The kind she'd been making since she was 8, with careful calligraphy and little watercolor designs in the corners. My daughter was 16 years old, and she was sleeping in her coat in our living room on Christmas Eve. Something cold settled in my chest. I set my bag down quietly and moved toward her. She stirred as I got closer, her eyes opening slowly. For just a second, she looked young again, 10, maybe, or 12. That age before she learned to guard herself. "Mom," as she said softly. "You're home." "Baby, why are you sleeping out here? Why didn't you go to bed?" She sat up slowly, and I noticed her hair was still damp. She'd been outside. In the rain. "I didn't want you to come home to an empty house on Christmas," she said. "I know you had a hard shift." I knelt down beside the couch, my knees protesting. What happened?" "You were supposed to be at Grandma and Grandpa's. Daniel said you left around 5. She looked at the plate of cookies. At the wrapped gifts. Her jaw tightened in that way she had when she was trying not to cry. "There wasn't room at the table," she said quietly. I didn't understand at first. "What do you mean there wasn't room?" "Grandma said they weren't expecting me. That they didn't have a place set. She said it would be too crowded." The cold in my chest spread. "But you told her you were coming. We confirmed it 3 days ago." Emily nodded. She was looking at her hands now. "I know. But when I got there, the house was full. I could see everyone through the window before I even knocked. Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike and the cousins. The Hendersons from church. The Prices from next door. There were at least 20 people, Mom. I counted the cars. I couldn't breathe right. What did Grandma say exactly?" She came to the door and she looked, surprised. Like she'd forgotten. She said, "Oh, Emily, honey, I'm so sorry, but we're absolutely packed tonight. We just don't have room." And then she kind of laughed and said, "You understand, don't you?" And I said yes, because everyone was watching from the dining room, and I didn't want to make a scene. Did anyone else say anything? Did Grandpa? He was in his chair. He waved at me. Aunt Rachel was right there in the hallway. She didn't say anything. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against my thighs. "What did you do?" I gave her the cookies and the presents. I made Grandma a bookmark and Grandpa a mug cozy, and I said Merry Christmas and I left. I sat in the car for a little while because I was crying and I didn't want to drive like that. Then I came home. I knew you'd be working late, and Daniel had that thing at his brother's, so I just, waited. She'd driven home alone in the rain. On Christmas Eve. At 16 years old. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, though I already knew. Emily never wanted to burden me. She'd learned that from watching me, I realized with a sick jolt. She'd learned that from watching me absorb every slight, every dismissal, every casual cruelty for my family for her entire life. You were at work, Mom. Someone needed you more. I pulled her into my arms then. And she let me, even though she was 16 and lately she'd been practicing that teenage distance. She felt small. She felt like she had when she was 7 and had fallen off her bike and skinned both knees, trying so hard to be brave. I'm so sorry, I whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. It's okay, she said. Really? It's not a big deal. But it was. It was a very big deal. I just didn't know yet how big. Daniel came home around 2. I was still awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I hadn't touched. Emily had finally gone to bed. He took one look at my face and sat down across from me. What happened? I told him. Every detail Emily had given me. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Daniel was a slow processor. He thought before he spoke, which was one of the things I'd fallen in love with. He didn't react. He responded. That's the 3rd time this year, he said finally. What? That's the 3rd time they've excluded her. There was her birthday in July when everyone went out to dinner, and somehow Emily wasn't on the list. And that family photo session in September that we only found out about because your cousin posted it on Facebook. I stared at him. I thought those were mistakes. Miscommunications. Lauren. He said my name gently, the way you'd speak to someone in shock. At what point do we stop calling it a mistake? I didn't have an answer. The next morning was Christmas. We opened presents as a family, just the 3 of us. Emily smiled at the right times. She thanked us for the art supplies and the new laptop she'd been wanting. She made French toast. We watched a movie. It was fine. It was normal. But I couldn't stop thinking about her sitting in her car in the rain. About the way she'd said, "You understand, don't you?" Like my mother had been asking her to be complicit in her own exclusion. After lunch, while Emily was sketching upstairs and Daniel was watching football, I went to my office. I'm not sure what I was looking for exactly. Maybe I just needed to do something with my hands, with the restless energy that had been building since last night. I pulled out the file cabinet where I kept our financial records. I'm meticulous about this. It's the nurse in me, I think, that need for documentation and order. Every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every expense, filed and dated. I started pulling folders. The house my parents lived in, the house I'd bought for them 8 years ago when my father lost his job at the warehouse. He'd been 56. Too young for Social Security, too old to be hired anywhere else. They were going to lose their rental. My mother had called me crying. I'd just made head nurse. I had good credit. Daniel and I had talked about it for one night, just one night, and we'd agreed. We'd help. We were family. I'd never asked them to pay me back. It had never been a loan in my mind. It was just what you did. You took care of your parents. But as I sat there looking at 8 years of mortgage payments, 8 years of property tax bills, 8 years of utility payments I'd quietly covered because Dad's part-time job at the hardware store didn't stretch far enough, something shifted inside me. The monthly payment was $1,847. I'd been paying it for 96 months. I did the math on my phone calculator. $177,312. I pulled out more folders. The new roof in 2022 when theirs started leaking. $12,000. The HVAC replacement, $8,500. The property taxes I'd paid every year, roughly $3,000 annually, so $24,000 total. The insurance, $1,200 a year, so $9,600 total. I was over $230,000 into that house. But that wasn't what made me stop breathing. It was the folder I pulled out next. Christmas gifts. I tracked everything for taxes. I'd learned that the hard way when we'd gotten audited once, and I'd kept records of what we'd spent on family gifts each year. I spread out the receipts across my desk. Last year, Emily had received a $25 gift card to Target from my parents. My sister Rachel's kids, Madison and Braden, 14 and 12, had gotten new iPads. I'd seen them opening the boxes at Christmas dinner. Top of the line. $800 each, minimum. The year before, Emily got a calendar with puppies on it. Madison got a gold necklace. Braden got an electric scooter. The year before that, a paperback book for Emily, used, I'd noticed, with someone else's name written inside the cover. For Madison and Braden, a trip to Disneyland with my parents. Just the four of them. Emily hadn't been invited. I sat back in my chair. The paper evidence of 8 years of casual dismissal was spread across my desk. How had I not seen it? Or had I seen it and just, filed it away? Rationalized it. They're on a fixed income. They have to be careful. Rachel needs more help. She's a single mom. That's just how they are. That's just how our family works. Emily had never complained. Not once. She'd smiled and said thank you for every thoughtless gift, every obvious afterthought. She'd made them homemade cards and baked them cookies and asked them about their week when we'd visited. And last night, she'd been turned away from their door. From my door. Because I'd bought that house. My name was on the deed. I checked, pulling out the paperwork with shaking hands. There it was, Lauren Margaret Bennett, sole owner. They were living in my house. Eating food I helped buy. Their lights were on because I paid the power bill. And they turned my daughter away on Christmas Eve. I heard a sound and looked up. Emily was standing in the doorway of the office. I don't know how long she'd been there. Mom? Are you okay? I started to say yes. It was automatic, the same way I'd said yes 1,000 times before when I wasn't okay, when I was exhausted or hurt or overwhelmed. We were family. We didn't complain. But then I looked at her face. At my daughter, who'd driven home alone in the rain rather than call me. Who'd learned to expect so little that she thought being turned away from Christmas dinner was not a big deal. No, I said. I'm not okay. She came into the room slowly, looking at the papers spread across the desk. She was smart. She understood what she was seeing. That's all the money you've given them, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yes. That's a lot. Yes. She sat down in the chair across from me, the same chair she'd sat in to do homework while I paid bills, the same chair she'd curled up in when she was little and wanted to be near me while I worked. I have something to show you, she said. She left and came back a few minutes later with a notebook. Not her regular sketchbook, this was smaller, with a dark blue cover. She held it for a moment, like she was deciding something, and then handed it to me. I've been keeping track, she said. I didn't want to forget. Sometimes I thought maybe I was making it up, being too sensitive, but then I'd write it down and I could see it was real. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. July 14th, Grandma and Grandpa took Madison and Braden school shopping. They asked me if I needed anything and I said maybe some new jeans, and Grandma said, "Well, your mother makes good money. I'm sure she'll take care of it." Madison got 7 outfits. I saw the bags. September 2nd, same year, a family barbecue. Grandma introduced Madison to her friend as my talented granddaughter who's going to be a lawyer someday. She introduced me as Lauren's girl. December 19th, a Christmas card photo. Everyone was invited except us. Grandma said it was just for people who lived nearby. But Uncle Terry was there and he lives in Seattle. Page after page. Small moments. Dismissals that seemed insignificant in isolation but together formed a pattern so clear it was crushing. The entry from last night was short. There wasn't room at the table. I'm glad Mom wasn't there to see Grandma's face. I closed the notebook carefully and set it on the desk. I couldn't look at Emily. If I looked at her, I would shatter, and I needed to not shatter. Not yet. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because you love them, she said simply. And they're your parents. And you work so hard, and you do so much for them, and I didn't want to be the reason you had to choose. Baby. And also because I thought maybe it was me. That I was doing something wrong. That if I was just nicer or more helpful or less awkward, they'd. She trailed off. But I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think there's anything I could have done. She was right. There wasn't. This wasn't about Emily. This had never been about Emily. Can I keep this? I asked, holding up the notebook. Yes. Thank you for showing me. She nodded. She looked tired. Not physically tired, emotionally tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying something heavy for too long. Mom? What are you going to do? I didn't know yet. But I knew I was going to do something. For the first time in 8 years, maybe in my whole life, I was going to do something. On December 27th, I called my friend Stephanie. We'd gone to nursing school together, but she'd switched to law after a few years on the floor. She'd always said she wanted to help people in a different way. Now she practiced family law. I need to ask you something, I said. And I need you to be my lawyer, not my friend. Okay, she said carefully. What's going on? I explained the situation. The house. The payments. The deed in my name. What had happened on Christmas Eve. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. They're tenants, as she said finally. Even without a formal lease, they've been living there with your permission for 8 years. That establishes tenancy. But Lauren, you're the owner. You have the right to end that tenancy. How? 30 days written notice in Oregon. Or 60 days if they've been there over a year, which they have. You'd need to provide formal written notice, delivered properly. If they don't leave, you can file for eviction through the courts, but usually it doesn't come to that. And legally, I can just do this. Tell them to leave. It's your house. Yes. Legally, you can. She paused. Morally, that's something else. That's not a legal question. No, I agreed. It's not. Lauren, can I ask you something as your friend, not your lawyer? Yes. Are you sure? Because this is going to blow up your family. You know that, right? I know. And you're still considering it? I thought about Emily's notebook. About her sitting in her car in the rain. About the way she'd said, I'm glad Mom wasn't there to see Grandma's face. I'm not considering it, EI said. I'm doing it. I wrote the letter that night. Daniel read it over my shoulder. Dear Mom and Dad, it began. This letter is to inform you that I am terminating your tenancy at address. You have 60 days from the date of this letter to vacate the property. During that time, I will continue to pay the mortgage and utilities to ensure you have a safe place to stay while you make other arrangements. After 60 days, all financial support will end. The house will be sold. I'm sorry it has come to this, but I cannot continue to support people who have shown such disregard for my daughter. I hope you understand. Lauren. It's very calm, Daniel said. I don't feel calm. I know. But this is better. If you went over there angry, it would just give them something to point to. This way, it's clear. It's done. I printed 2 copies. Signed both. Put them in an envelope. I drove to the post office the next morning and sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. Stephanie had told me to document everything. The receipt was dated December 28th. They'd have the letter by the 30th, probably. I went to work. I came home. We had a quiet New Year's Eve, just the 3 of us. Emily seemed lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted even though nothing had officially happened yet. The call came on January 2nd. I was at work, in the middle of triaging a woman with chest pain, when my phone started buzzing. My mother. Then my father. Then Rachel. Then my mother again. I ignored them all. The woman with chest pain turned out to be having a heart attack. We got her to the cath lab. She lived. I saved someone's mother that day, I remember thinking. Someone's mother who maybe deserved it. I listened to the voicemails in my car before driving home. My mother, first message, Lauren, what is this? What is this letter? You can't be serious. Call me immediately. My father, sweetheart, your mother is very upset. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Please call us so we can talk about this. Rachel, what the hell, Lauren? You're throwing Mom and Dad out? After everything they've done for you? Call me. Now. My mother, second message. Her voice was different this time. Colder. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is cruel. After we raised you, after everything we sacrificed, this is how you repay us? By putting us on the street? I thought we raised you better than this. I drove home. I didn't call back. The next 3 days were a barrage. Calls. Texts. Emails. My mother's friends from church called me at the hospital. My aunt, my father's sister, sent me a long text about honoring thy father and mother. Rachel showed up at my house. Daniel sent her away. I didn't engage. Stephanie had told me not to. Every conversation is an opportunity for them to manipulate you, as she'd said. Don't give them that opening. The letter said everything that needed to be said. On January 6th, my mother showed up at the hospital. She was waiting in the parking garage when I got off my shift, standing next to my car. It was dark, nearly 8 p.m. I almost didn't see her. Mom, I said. You shouldn't be here. You won't return my calls. What choice did I have? She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. For just a second, I felt the old tug of guilt. But then I remembered Emily's face. The notebook. I don't have anything to say to you, I said carefully. You're really going to do this? Throw your own parents out on the street? You're not on the street. You have 60 days. And it's not your house. It's mine. It's always been mine. We thought it was a gift, she said. Her voice cracked. You never asked us to pay you back. We thought. You thought you could take whatever I gave and give nothing in return. Not even basic kindness to my daughter. That's what this is about? Christmas? Emily told me that's what this is about. Lauren, there really wasn't room at the table. Don't. I heard my voice sharpen. Don't lie to me. There were 20 people there. You made room for the neighbors. You made room for people from church. You didn't make room for your granddaughter. Rachel's children are younger. They need more attention. Emily is 16. She showed up with homemade gifts and you turned her away. On Christmas Eve. And she drove home alone in the rain and sat in our house in her coat because she didn't want me to come home to an empty house after a 14-hour shift. That's who she is. And you treated her like an inconvenience. My mother's face hardened. She's always been sensitive. You've coddled her. Get away from my car, I said. We're done. Lauren. We're done. You have 53 days left. Use them. I got in my car. My hands were shaking so badly it took me 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. She stood there in the garage watching me drive away. I cried the whole way home. Rachel ambushed me at the coffee shop near the hospital a week later. I was on my lunch break, just trying to get a sandwich, and there she was. She'd been waiting. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Lauren, please. Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I sat down. She looked terrible, circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed. Part of me wondered if she'd done it on purpose, to make me feel guilty. They're my parents too, she started. Then you can help them. I can't afford to. You know that. I can't afford it either, Rachel. I've been paying for that house for 8 years. I've paid for their roof and their heat and their property taxes. I put your kids through summer camp. I bought Madison's clarinet. I paid for Braden's hockey gear. Don't tell me you can't afford it. She looked shocked, like she'd genuinely never added it up. You never said anything. Because it's what family does, right? We take care of each other. Except it's only been going one direction. I've been taking care of everyone, and the one time my daughter needed something, just basic inclusion, basic respect, there was nothing for her. Emily is fine. She's oversensitive. Don't. I stood up. Don't you dare. She's not oversensitive. She's been documenting 3 years of being treated like she doesn't matter. 3 years of watching your kids get iPads while she gets used books. Of watching you all take family photos without her. Of being introduced as Lauren's girl instead of by her name. She's not fine. But she will be. Because I'm choosing her. You're choosing your pride, Rachel shot back. You're choosing revenge because your feelings got hurt. No, I said quietly. I'm choosing my child. I'm choosing to stop teaching her that family means accepting mistreatment. I'm choosing to show her that love isn't supposed to hurt. This is going to destroy our family. Rachel, I said, picking up my bag, it was already destroyed. I'm just finally admitting it. I left her sitting there. I threw away my lunch on the way out, I couldn't eat anymore anyway, and went back to work. I had 3 more patients to see before my shift ended. A broken arm. A kidney stone. A teenager who'd been in a car accident and was terrified to call her parents because the car was totaled and she thought they'd be angry. I held her hand while we waited for the x-rays and told her that if her parents loved her, they'd just be grateful she was alive. I wondered if I believed that. I wondered if my parents were capable of that kind of love, the kind that prioritizes the person over the inconvenience. The intervention happened on January 20th. I came home from work to find 5 cars in my driveway. My parents' car. Rachel's minivan. My uncle's truck. 2 cars I didn't recognize. Daniel met me at the door. "They've been here for an hour," he said quietly. "I told them you weren't home, but they insisted on waiting. Emily's upstairs. I told her to stay there." "Who's here?" "Your parents. Rachel. Your Uncle Terry and his wife. And 2 people from their church, a pastor and his wife, I think." An intervention. They'd staged an actual intervention. For a moment, it was so absurd I almost laughed. But then I walked into my living room and saw them all sitting there, my mother on my couch, my father in my chair, all of them in my house, and the laughter died. "Thank you for seeing us," the pastor said. He was older, maybe 70, with kind eyes that I immediately distrusted. Kindness could be a weapon too. "I didn't invite you into my home," I said. "Lauren, we're here because we love you," my mother said. Her voice was trembling. "We're worried about you. This isn't like you." "What isn't like me?" "Setting boundaries. Abandoning your family," my Uncle Terry said. His voice was hard. "After everything they've done for you." "What have they done for me, exactly?" I asked. I was still standing. I wasn't going to sit. This wasn't a conversation. "I'd like to know. Because from where I'm standing, I've been the one doing everything for 8 years." "They raised you," Rachel said. "They loved you. They gave you everything." "I paid them back for that," I said. "I paid them back with $230,000 and 8 years of pretending not to notice how they treated my daughter. The account is settled." "You can't put a price on family," my mother said. "You did," I shot back. "Every time you bought Madison an iPad and gave Emily a gift card. Every time you took Rachel's kids to Disneyland and left Emily at home. Every time you made room at your table for neighbors and strangers, but not for her. You put a price on family. You decided what she was worth. And it wasn't very much." "We love Emily," my father said. He looked devastated. "We've always loved her." "Then why wasn't there room at the table?" Silence. The pastor cleared his throat. "Lauren, I understand you're hurt. But the Bible is very clear about honoring our parents. The Bible is also clear about not exasperating your children," I said. I'd looked it up. Colossians 3 verse 21. "Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged." What do you think happens to a child who watches her grandmother choose strangers over her? Who keeps a notebook to remind herself that the cruelty is real because otherwise she'd think she was imagining it? "She keeps a notebook?" my mother asked. She looked stricken. 3 years' worth, I said. Every slight. Every dismissal. Every time she was made to feel like she didn't matter. She documented it because she was trying to protect me. Because she knew if I saw it clearly, I'd have to choose. And she didn't want to be the reason I lost my family. I felt my voice crack. But she is the reason. She's the best reason in the world. So you're going to throw us out? Rachel demanded. Make our parents homeless? They're not homeless. They have options. You have a 4-bedroom house, Rachel. They could move in with you. Uncle Terry, you have that guest house behind your property. Or they could get an apartment. They have Dad's social security and his pension from the warehouse. They can afford rent, especially without all the extras I've been covering. That's not the same as having a home, and my mother said. She was crying now. That's not the same as having our house. It's not your house, I said. It's mine. It's always been mine. I just let you live there. And I'm done. The pastor's wife spoke for the first time. Think about how this will look, as she said gently. To your community. To your church family. To Emily. What are you teaching her about forgiveness? I'm teaching her that she matters, I said. I'm teaching her that family isn't an excuse for mistreatment. I'm teaching her that she doesn't have to set herself on fire to keep other people warm. And if that's not what you learn in church, then maybe I've been going to the wrong church. I looked at all of them, these people who were supposed to love me, supposed to love my daughter, who'd driven to my house on a Friday night to tell me that I was wrong for protecting my child. You need to leave now, I said. Lauren, my mother started. Get out of my house. They left slowly, reluctantly, with backward glances and whispered conversations in the driveway. I watched from the window until all 5 cars were gone. Then I locked the door and went upstairs. Emily was sitting on her bed with her headphones on, sketching. She looked up when I came in and pulled the headphones down around her neck. Are they gone? She asked. Yes. Are you okay? I sat down next to her on the bed. I will be, I said. Are you okay? Mom, she said carefully, you don't have to do this for me. I don't want to be the reason. Stop, I said gently. You're not the reason. You're the wake-up call. There's a difference. She thought about that for a moment. What's the difference? The reason is that I've been letting people treat us badly for a long time because I thought that's what family meant. That you absorbed it, you made excuses for it, you kept the peace. You're not the reason that was wrong. But you're the reason I finally see it. And I'm grateful for that. Because you deserve better. We both deserve better. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Are you scared? I thought about it honestly. Yes. But not of them. I'm scared of what I've already lost. The family I thought I had. But I'm realizing maybe I never had it in the first place. And that's sad, but it's also freeing. Yeah, Emily said quietly. I think I know what you mean. My parents moved out on February 14th, Valentine's Day. I don't know if they chose the date on purpose or if it was just coincidence. I wasn't there. Daniel handled it with Stephanie present to document everything. He said they were quiet. Efficient. They'd rented a U-Haul and they had help from church friends. They didn't take anything that belonged to the house, no appliances, no fixtures. Just their furniture and personal belongings. They left the keys on the kitchen counter. Rachel stopped speaking to me. My Uncle Terry sent me one final email explaining that I was no longer welcome at family gatherings and that I'd have to live with the consequences of my choices. Several people from their church unfriended me on social media. My mother's best friend left a 1-star review on a nursing feedback site, claiming I'd been rude to her in the ER. I hadn't treated her, I'd never treated her, but it didn't matter. The review stayed up. I'd been erased. Excommunicated. The same way Emily had been erased, slowly, over years. Only mine was sudden and absolute. It hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. There were days I came home from work and just lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I'd become the villain in a story where all I'd done was protect my child. But then I'd see Emily. I'd see her laughing with her friends in the kitchen. I'd see her working on her art without that careful tension she'd always carried around my parents. I'd see her dance in the living room to music on her phone, unself-conscious and free. And I'd know I'd made the right choice. I sold the house in April. The market was good, and it sold in 3 days. After I paid off the remaining mortgage and covered the closing costs, I netted $140,000. I put it in an investment account for Emily's college. She'd been accepted to 3 schools, all with partial scholarships, because she was brilliant and talented and everything my parents had refused to see. We didn't talk about them much. Sometimes I'd see Emily looking at her phone with a sad expression and I'd know her grandmother had posted something on Facebook, a photo of Rachel's kids, probably, with a caption about how blessed she was to have such a wonderful family. Emily had muted her, but sometimes she'd look anyway. Old habits. You don't have to torture yourself, I told her once. I know, she said. I just keep thinking maybe it'll be different. That maybe she'll realize. She won't, I said gently. Some people can't. And that's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on them. I know, she said again. But knowing and accepting are different things. She'd get there. We both would. The first Christmas after everything happened, I was anxious for weeks. Not because I wanted to reconcile, I didn't. But because Christmas had been the catalyst, and I worried it would bring everything back for Emily. I worried she'd feel the loss more acutely. I shouldn't have worried. In October, Emily asked if we could host Christmas Eve at our house. A real one, she said. With people who actually want to be there. So we did. Our living room on Christmas Eve was full. Daniel's family, his parents, his brother and sister-in-law, his nephew. Stephanie and her husband and their 2 kids. 2 of Emily's closest friends whose families were out of town. 3 nurses from my unit who didn't have anywhere else to go. My friend Carmen from the hospital cafeteria who'd been divorced 2 years ago and was dreading spending the holiday alone. We cooked together. We played charades. Emily and Daniel's nephew performed a truly terrible magic show. We sang carols, badly and loudly. At midnight, we toasted with champagne and sparkling cider, and Emily proposed the toast. To chosen family, she said. And to people who make room at the table. Everyone cheered. I looked around at these faces, people who'd shown up, who'd made space, who'd chosen us the same way we'd chosen them, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt home. Later, after everyone had left or gone to bed in various spare rooms and couches, I found Emily in the kitchen cleaning up. It was past 2 in the morning. We were both exhausted and happy. Good Christmas? I asked. The best, she said. She smiled at me. Mum? Thank you. For what? For choosing me. I know it wasn't easy. I pulled her into a hug. She was taller than me now, when had that happened, and she smelled like cinnamon and contentment. It was the easiest thing I've ever done, I said. Once I finally did it. She pulled back and looked at me. Do you regret it? I thought about my mother's house, now owned by a young couple with a baby. I thought about the money in Emily's college fund. I thought about the notebook with 3 years of documented hurt that I'd put in a safe deposit box, not because we'd need it, but because I wanted Emily to know I believed her. I thought about the family members who no longer spoke to me, who'd chosen sides and decided I was the cruel one. I thought about Emily's face when she'd said there wasn't room at the table. And I thought about her face tonight. Surrounded by people who loved her, who saw her, who would always make room. No, I said. Not even for a second. It's been 2 years now. Emily is thriving at college, studying art and psychology. She calls me 3 times a week. She's in therapy, we both are, working through the complicated grief of losing family members who are still alive. She's dating someone kind. She's making art that makes people stop and really look. She's building a life. I still work at the hospital. I still come home exhausted. But I come home to a house that feels lighter. Daniel and I have started traveling, small trips, weekend getaways, the kind of thing we never did before because all our money went to keeping other people afloat. We're planning a big trip for our 20th anniversary. Emily wants to come. We might let her. I ran into my mother once, about 6 months ago, at the grocery store. We saw each other from opposite ends of the aisle. She looked at me. I looked at her. Neither of us moved toward the other. After a moment, she turned her cart around and went the other way. I finished my shopping. Sometimes people ask me if I think we'll ever reconcile. If time will heal things. If maybe when Emily has kids of her own, there will be a reason to rebuild the bridge. I don't think so. And I've made peace with that. Because here's what I've learned. Some tables don't deserve your presence. Some families aren't safe. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself, for your child, is to walk away from people who've made it clear you're only valuable when you're useful. I chose my daughter. I chose peace. I chose a life where love doesn't come with a price tag, and family doesn't mean enduring cruelty for the sake of tradition. And every single day, I'd make the same choice. Some tables don't deserve your presence. But somewhere, there's a table that does. And the people gathered there will be glad you came.